Well, thank you. Just a couple of notes. Commissioner Greedo will be joining us via Zoom this evening, so she should be logging in shortly. One item to note is item 3B, which is a resolution executing a development agreement with Dickey Pitt between Port Orchard Sand and Gravel Company in Kitsap County. That was acted on at our PM briefing today. So that actually is going to be affirmed on our agenda. So Madam Clerk, if we can make sure that that references an affirmation of the prior action. And then with that, we may need to take some items out of order. If we can give Commissioner Greedo a little bit more time to log in. And then we can start maybe with 2C and 2D. But in the meantime, if you could share with folks who are participating via Zoom how they can participate tonight.
Yes. For members of the public wishing to comment remotely at the Board of County Commissioners regular Monday night business meeting during designated public comment times, business and consent agenda, public hearing, and general issues, the following options are available. For internet users, please click on the raise hand feature to signal that you would like to comment. The sound will be unmuted and the internet participant should announce her or his name. The participant will be called upon to speak at the appropriate time. Please note that we will not be able to assist you should you experience technical difficulties. For call-in users, please dial *9 on your keypad to signal that you would like to comment. The last 4 digits of the call-in number will be announced and call-in participants should announce their first and last name before speaking.
And we can continue.
Item 1A, presentation of Employee Service Award for December 2021 to Tina Nelson.
Mr. Rutam, were you going to take the lead on this?
Good evening, board. My name is Joe Rutan. I'm the Assistant Director of Public Works and County Engineer. And tonight we have the pleasure of appreciating Tina Nelson for 15 years of service with Kitsap County as the Engineering, Construction, and Design Manager. This last year, she was a great year for her. She was the County Engineer, County Program Manager of the Year for the Washington State Association of County Engineers. And she continues to serve as the Regional Director for Region 9 of the American Public Works Association. So with that, I'd like to introduce Ms. Tina Nelson, the Kitsap County Engineering and Construction Manager.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioners. May I say a few words?
Well, please do, and then we may add a few of our own as well.
Okay, all right, so everybody sits comfortably now. I've been a resident of this county for over 30 years. My children were born and raised here. This is my home. I was fortunate to choose a career, public works, that I love, a rewarding career, one where I feel that I can make a difference. I've been in the public works field for over 35 years, started in kindergarten. I accepted a position with the county, 15 years ago, the same one I hold today. It was to deliver capital projects. For those that may not be so familiar with that, roadway improvements, intersections, bridges, roadway widenings, etc. And I wanted to work in the county that I call home. I get to work on projects that directly affect me, affect my family and my friends. And those projects that can be easily viewed after church on Sunday. I am also fortunate to have been able to attract an outstanding team. We are one of the best capital delivery teams in the state. And I'm not just saying, I know, because I'm well connected with folks across the country in other jurisdictions through my longtime involvement in the American Public Works Associations. We design projects that meet national standards, fits the needs of our county efficiently and cost effectively. It is a team of dedicated folks where the majority live in Kitsap County, and they enjoy serving their community, doing the very best for the community they live in and work for. When I started 15 years ago, so many made their entire career at the county. There was pride in the work, and it was a good place to work. It's a different time today. Loyalty and home turf only goes so far when the dollars differ too much. I know that my team is not here for the money, because if that was the case, they would be no longer here. I read, and so did many of my team members, your October 4th letter to county staff, especially the part about discussing what the county can afford in the new year. The 4% raise is much appreciated. Thank you. And it is a good start. However, as longtime resident of this county and a public works professional, the county can't afford not to act on wages. I stand before you with my 15 years, but I'm not going to be back for 20. We have to attract new members of our team. As we age, we need to recruit and we need to retain those that are with us. My team is dedicated to serving the community they enjoy living in Kitsap County, but they also have to look to the future and to the opportunities that are growing out there. The passage of the infrastructure bill and the already existing shortage of staff in the public works profession, one will be stupid not to look elsewhere when that easily means another $15,000 to $20,000 a year. For me, a commute across the Narrows Bridge to a similar position is $45,000 a year. We can't even compete with cities in our own county. The tax and rate payers in our county deserve staff that is experienced and efficient at what they do. The county can't afford not to recognize this as we move forward. The county will get plenty of money for infrastructure improvements, and the money will last even longer for more projects if we have qualified and experienced in-house staff doing the work. I know you've heard this before, and I know that the money only goes so far. However, if you are committed to the staff at the county and the county, you will listen. You will encourage suggestions. You will be open to changes in hiring practices. You will welcome new classification strategies, promote career ladders, recognize certifications, and support creativity in recruiting future team members. We need all the tools we can find to retain and attract staff to keep this wonderful county rolling, the place I call home. Thank you very much, and I appreciate the time.
Thank you for your comments, and we do have a certificate of appreciation for you at this point in time. If you'd like to come up and thank you, appreciate it. Thank you, Tina. And we do thank you for your comments. As you know, it is something that is on the forefront of the board's mind as we move forward with a very complex set of circumstances we find ourselves in today that nobody thought of really pre-COVID. The universe has kind of flipped on its head in many levels. But before you go, I just wanted to share something. I think that, one of my first memories of you, because I had figured by the time when I joined the county that you'd been here forever because you were a fixture at the Suquamish Citizens Advisory Council committee meetings. And you were the go-to person. You answered their questions, you addressed their concerns, you had built this rapport and this relationship with them that for me is just illustrative of, I think, what we strive to have with county employees and the citizens that we serve or the residents we serve. So I just wanted to thank you for that. That's always left a very lasting impression on me, and I appreciate it. So, final thoughts?
Thank you, Tina. I'll go back to the Buckland Hill Bridge where you were the lead engineer not too many years ago. It seems like every recent Board of Commissioners meeting, you're standing before us and we're recognizing you or congratulating you tonight again. So congratulations on this most recent honor, and we're proud of you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
for your
Merry
service.
Christmas.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll continue. Let's go ahead with
D.
2C.
2C?
Mhm.
2C, resolution reappointing Stephen McDermott, Barbara Paul, and Charmaine Scott for new 3-year terms ending December 31st, 2024 to the Area Agency on Aging Advisory Council.
So the council is required to advise the Area Agency on Aging in the development and implementation of the area plan for aging services funded through Kitsap County. They also conduct public hearings, represent interests of older persons, and review and comment on all community policies, programs, and actions which affect older persons. Now, the terms of District 1 Representative Barbara Paul and Stephen McMurdo and District 2 Representative Charmaine Scott expired December 31st of this year, and they wish to be reappointed and have been a wonderful addition to that council. And again, as the clerk mentioned, these would be reappointments for 3-year terms ending December 31st of 2024. So with that, I would move the board adopt the resolution reappointing Steve McMurdo, Barbara Paul, and Charmaine Scott to the Area Agency on Aging Advisory Council.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries.
Item 2D, resolution reappointing Scott Satter and Brian Watson for new 3-year terms ending December 31st, 2024 to the Kitsap County Non-Motorized Facilities Citizens Advisory Committee.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Please.
the Non-Motorized Facilities Citizen Advisory Committee, that's a mouthful, was established November 10th, 2014. The group advises the Board of Commissioners and staff on matters related to non-motorized transportation and related planning processes. The term of District 1 Representative Scott Salter and District 3 Representative Brian Watson expired December 31st of this year, and both wish to be reappointed. We have determined that they are certainly qualified and staff supports this. They will be reappointed for 3-year terms beginning December 31st, ending December 31st, 2024. With that, I'd like to make a motion, if I may, to move to adopt the resolution reappointing Scott Sater and Brian Watson to the Kitsap County Non-Motorized Facilities Citizen Advisory Committee.
Second. There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I think they both have been very integral to the operations and functioning of that committee. So they'll be great reappointments. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries.
Thank you.
And Madam Clerk, I do not yet see Commissioner Guido. So why don't we go back to?
She did text me. She's having problems logging in, so I just sent her the call-in number. So we're hoping she'll call in.
Okay.
You want to call
In the meantime, we'll go ahead and move on to item 2A, just to keep the agenda moving.
Sure. Okay.
Okay. And I'll take care of that one.
Okay. Item 2A, resolution reappointing Joanne Clark for a new 3-year term ending December 31st, 2024 to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board.
And the purpose of the Parks Advisory Board is to provide timely advice to the Parks Director and the County Commissioners regarding the acquisition, development, and administration of park amenities and properties. The Advisory Board may also be asked to address specific issues related to property acquisition, parks improvements, and recreation programs. Now, the term of District 2 Representative Joanne Clark expires December 31st of this year, and she is interested in being reappointed and continuing that service. And I believe Commissioner Guido also supports her continuation in that capacity. And with that, I would move the board adopt a resolution reappointing Joanne Clark to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Did we see any call in from Commissioner Guido yet?
No, not yet.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. That motion carries. Okay. And then we can continue to item 2B.
Joanne Clark is online.
Oh, Joanne, please, Joanne, would you like a moment to say any words?
I just want to thank you for recommending me again, and I hope to do a good job for the South Kitsap end of the Parks Department and as a whole.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Joanne. And welcome, Commissioner Guido. Is there anything that you'd like to say about Joanne?
Thank you. I'm sorry I was late. I think Joanne does a fabulous job, and I'm delighted to reappoint her this evening.
Excellent.
Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you.
So that brings us then to item 2B.
Resolution reappointing Mark Miller for a new one-year term ending December 31st, 2022 to the Bremerton Kitsap Public Access Television Advisory Committee.
Commissioner Greedo.
Thank you. Well, as you know, I just got here, so I'm not as equipped as I should be, but Mark has served really, really well on BCAT's advisory committee for a number of years and is interested in continuing. It takes a certain amount of expertise and technical knowledge to be able to recommend to the Bremerton Kitsap Public Access Television Advisory Committee, and I am delighted to be able to move approval of his reappointment.
It's a motion.
There's a motion on the floor, I believe.
Is there a second?
There is a second right here.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to reappoint Mark Miller to the BCAT Advisory Committee. Is there any further discussion?
No thanks.
Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Hi.
That motion carries. And I think I was looking, I wasn't sure if Mark made it online this evening. I don't see him. So we can continue.
All right.
Item number 4, administrators' comments.
Good evening. Tonight marks the last night meeting for the Board of County Commissioners for 2021. We will be continuing on with our Monday morning and afternoon briefings, as well as our Wednesday work studies, and reconvening for our night meetings in January. First meeting will be January 10th, 2022.
Thank you.
This is an opportunity for the public to address the board on regular business agenda, including consent agenda.
And there's no one in chambers this evening that provided or signed up to provide comment on our regular or business or consent agenda. If you would like to, apart from the hearings that we have scheduled this evening, would be that opportunity. If there is any member of the public that would like to provide comment at this time, please use the raised hand feature or *9 if you're on your phone. Again, this is an opportunity to provide comments to the board on our regular business or consent agenda. If you'd like to provide comments apart from our hearings this evening, this would be the opportunity. And I'm not seeing any raised hands. So we'll continue.
I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and just as a reminder, items on the Board of Commissioners consent agenda have been reviewed at prior open public meetings. The commissioners meet weekly on Mondays and Wednesdays to review and receive briefings on contracts, resolutions, ordinances, and other miscellaneous items. Agendas for these briefings can be found at our website, www.kitsapgov.com. And otherwise, unless otherwise noted, all expenditures for those remaining agenda items have been included in our annual budget. There's a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 That motion carries. Thank you.
Public hearing A, public hearing to adopt a resolution amending the 2021 annual budget.
Carlton, welcome.
Good evening, Commissioners. For the record, I'm Christopher Carlson, Kitsap County Budget Manager, and I'm here to present a resolution amending the 2021 Kitsap County budget. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I've provided a high-level overview of the amendment this evening. Okay. Just a reminder, the county utilizes 4 opportunities every year to amend or adjust the budget. This is a regular and normal practice that we do often. This fourth quarter amendment specifically consists of some very routine maintenance that we do almost every year. The budget office does report to the commissioners monthly about departmental spending, and in some cases, we wait until the end right now for the fourth quarter to amend the budget if necessary, if departments are tracking over budget. This budget amendment does adjust spending authority within available revenues and only uses about 225,000 in cumulative fund balances. The fourth quarter amendments broken down by fund. So I've done some high level categories here. In the general fund, we're requesting to increase spending authority by over $1.1 million. Again, this section here is supported by current revenues. So you have some additional spending authority requests. We need to fix attrition in salary and benefits, court costs for district court and prosecutor's office. We have some smaller adjustments for operating supplies in the commissioner's coroner facilities. Some adjustments are needed for parks maintenance. And then we have a few small staffing adjustments related to position changes in the clerk's office and the sheriff's office. We have some use of fund balance. We're going to request to prepay some election services. It's more of a cash flow issue, not necessarily a budget issue. We have to bill the outside jurisdictions like the ports and cities for election services. And in order to make sure that there's money in the fund in a timely fashion before 12/31 at the end of the year, we want to do this prepayment, of which we will be sure to recollect the money after the special purpose districts pay their bill. And then we have some grants and contract adjustments. District Court got a grant award from the Administrative Office of the Courts. Emergency Management needs grants adjustments for COVID-19 response. And facilities maintenance is an adjustment to their groundskeeping contract and how we budgeted it originally. As far as other funds go, there's 18.3 million requested increase of spending authority related to construction projects, parks and public works, 6.9 million. That's for the most part done within available revenues and some available fund balance. The county self-insured for casualty, property, liability, workers' comp, and employer benefits. We are having some adjustments, mostly in the risk fund, and that's largely related to timing. That's about a little over $3 million. And then we have some grants and contracts adjustments for human services and the COVID-19 response fund and the inmate welfare fund. As you can see, it's large. The 18 million is largely supported by almost 13 million in current revenues, and then the rest in fund balances. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Great. Commissioner Wolf?
No
any
questions.
No questions? Commissioner Garrido?
No, thank you. Nice job from the budget staff.
Well, just, Chris, could you pull the document back up for me, please? Yeah. So one of those words, I just was wondering if you could, for folks who may not be familiar with our budgeting process and use of the term attrition, can you explain that a little bit as sort of what that tool is and how we use that to manage our budget?
Of course, yeah. The county budgets, in the general fund specifically, we budget for attrition. It's natural. We know that it's going to happen. So we budget salary and benefits at 97%. So we're hoping and planning for 3% attrition. In the general fund alone, that number is about $1.8 million. This allows us to be more resourceful with the funds that the current revenues that we have available and plan for those natural retirements or gaps in employment where somebody leaves and the time to hire. So smaller offices sometimes don't make the attrition because they're staffed for the full year and no fault of their own. And so we need to adjust those offices, whereas some of the larger offices might make up for it for the whole fund because they have 5, 6, 7 vacancies for a longer period of time.
Have we seen a kind of more activity? And I know that all various funding sources, et cetera, don't necessarily run on a calendar year or our budget year. Have we seen probably a greater level of activity in terms of additional funds received and therefore the need to appropriate the spending authority for those?
Sales tax is performing a little bit better than budget. And for the most part, like the sheriff's office, for example, has had a ton of retirements. And so their savings is more than accomplishing the attrition for the general fund in total. And so it's not really an add of additional spending authority per se. It's more of a move from one department to another across the general fund.
Because I know we've received a fair amount of funds this year, whether it's sort of the American, Rescue Plan, et cetera. And we did some of those activities or some of those amendments earlier in the year, but there could be other ones like the grant that we received for the sewer utility, et cetera. So I wasn't sure if those were kind of anomalies this year or.
Oh, sure. Well, so yeah, like district court, for example, with their court backlog, they sought support from the administrative office of the courts for overtime budget, which if they hadn't, they'd run into some attrition issues as well. So I think it's great that we've had some offices reach out to it with other available funding sources to fund staffing. In like that example, staffed moving time over to the COVID response fund for those that are working in the emergency operations center does represent some savings to the general fund if their tasks have been reassigned completely.
Thank you. I think that's pretty much all of my questions. I appreciate that. And kind of putting you on the spot for some additional ones, because we definitely go through this at our various briefings, et cetera. And so with that, this item does require a public hearing. So I will open the public testimony for this hearing. No one in chambers signed up to provide testimony on our fourth quarter budget amendment. If there is a member of the public and participating via Zoom this evening, if you'd like to provide testimony, please use the raised hand feature or *9 on your phone. And that will indicate that you are interested in providing testimony. If you do, then you would have 3 minutes. If there is any member of the public in the chambers this evening that would like to provide testimony, please come up to the podium. Or we do have Helen Havens. Helen, you should be able to unmute yourself and you'll have 3 minutes.
All right, thank you. Good evening. My name is Helen Havens. I'm a citizen of Bremerton, and I thank you for the opportunity to address you all on this kind of central community issue. I've lived and worked in Kitsap County for most of my adult life, working with addiction and mental health and in public.
Helen,
yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Are you providing testimony on our fourth quarter budget amendment?
Oh no, I'm very sorry.
Oh, are you trying to, for the affordable housing?
Yes.
Okay, can come back in about 3 hearings. We'll be ready. So that's okay. Raise your hand then, okay?
Yes.
If there is anyone that would like to provide testimony on our fourth quarter budget amendment, I'll be more clear. Please use the raise hand feature. Seeing none, I will close the public testimony for our fourth quarter budget amendments. And commissioners, is there a motion?
Be happy to make a motion, Mr. Chairman, amending the 2021 annual budget. And with that being said, we've been amply briefed on this. I have no questions. That would be my motion.
And I will second that motion.
So there's a motion and a second to adopt a resolution amending our 2021 annual budget. If there's no further discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 That motion carries. Thank you. Madam Clerk, our next 2 items, our next 2 hearings, we have Mr. Baker assigned to those. He is on the board's behalf currently zooming in to the Public Facilities District meeting. And so I would recommend that if we could skip item B and move on to matter C, which is for decision only. That is one that we actually had a hearing on November 22nd pertaining to the redistricting of Kitsap County Commissioner districts pursuant to our state statute.
Mr. Chair, was there any further input after the public hearing that was held?
There was not.
Okay, thank you. Then I would move approval of the ordinance regarding the redistricting.
Okay, hold one moment, please. If the clerk will need to put it into the record.
Okay,
Public hearing C. Public hearing C, matter set for decision only, continuation of a November 22nd, 2021 public hearing to consider an ordinance regarding the redistricting of the Kitsap County Commissioner districts pursuant to state statute.
Thank you. And that said, after our hearing on the 22nd of November, there was a little testimony then. I was trying to find a map of where it actually the changes would be made, predominantly in the downtown Bremerton area, which would move a few blocks because after the decennial census and the results came back, we had a larger amount of growth in South Kitsap compared to the other two districts. And when you start, our requirement is to make sure that the commissioner districts are, for all intents and purposes, balanced. So we went through the process of looking at different scenarios. And the only change, there would be no change between Commissioner District 1 and 3, which would be the north and central boundaries. The only difference would be between District 3 and 2, downtown Bremerton, to shift a little population so that we're within a percentage or so of the balance, basically, which it's not really possible to get absolute balance. And so that is what is to the board this evening, requires adoption, and because it does determine sort of who is eligible to vote in the District 3 commissioner race next year in the primary. So that we do need to have it executed and to the auditor's office in plenty of time to get that implemented. With that, Commissioner Garrido, I believe you were making a motion.
thank you, Chair Gelder, and I appreciate your clear explanation of the reason that we're doing this. And I would go ahead and move that we adopt an ordinance regarding the redistricting of Kitsap County Commissioner districts pursuant to state statute.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I would just add, just for clarification for the public, that this is not an uncomplicated issue, but I would think it'd be important to let the public know that there is a separate and apart legislative redistricting process that has nothing to do with what we are doing here tonight in Kitsap County, two separate processes together.
Correct. Those are separate along with the congressional districts. So this is just within the population of Kitsap County as a whole. It does tend to be the first step that will have other districts kind of mirror them. Like our Kitsap Public Utility Districts is a board of 3 commissioners as well, and they tend to follow then the boundaries of our county commissioner districts. So.
And also I thought there was excellent review with all political parties that had an interest in this with the auditor's office, and very good outreach, I thought, to the entire community and the political parties, all of the parties.
Indeed.
All right, well, there's a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries. And in the interest of trying to move some things along, and Mr. Baker is not yet available for item B, we'll start with the presentation portion for hearing D. And if Mr. Baker comes in, then we can take a pause, move back to item B, and then go on from there.
Okay.
That sound like a plan?
Yes.
Okay.
Public hearing D, public hearing to consider an ordinance imposing additional sale and use tax of 0.1% for housing and related services as authorized by RCW 82.14.530 and adding new chapter 4.34 to Kitsap County Code.
Good
Mr.
afternoon.
Washburn, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Doug Washburn, and I'm the Director of Kitsap County Human Services. I'm going to share my screen since Eric is not here, if that's all right.
Please. Is it loading, Doug?
It's taking its time, but I believe it's loading. Let me try this. Okay.
It's
Doug, I brought it up.
Oh,
Hold
okay.
on one second. I'll put it in presenting mode. There you go.
so if you just want to then tell Dana when you're ready to proceed with the slide, that'd be great.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. Thanks, Dana. This is a public hearing to consider an ordinance imposing an additional sales and use tax for affordable housing and related services. Next slide, please, Dana. This is from legislation that gave us the ability, and it started out with House Bill 1590 in 2020 and was refined a little bit with House Bill 1070 in 2021. It's a 1/10% sales tax that will increase the average cost for the average citizen about $17,000 a year. We get that information from the Washington Low Income Housing Alliance. We always worry about people at the bottom end of the income spectrum, and then also the legislature passed this year or last year in 2021, the working family tax credit that will help families that are at lower income levels that this could hurt or impact to get a rebate on their sales taxes. Who this serves is housing for 60% of people that are at area median income and for behavioral health dollars. One of the good news about this and what the legislature was thoughtful about is that also this funding can be used to leverage about 5 times again other funding sources, because many funding sources require a local match. This would allow us to do this. And it's also consistent with our homeless housing study and our recommendations from our recent affordable housing study. Next slide, please, Dana. I just mentioned the 2020 Eco Northwest Affordable Housing Study that we did with the city of Bremerton we funded. Some of the recommendations out of that study included affordable housing. That study found after a long looking at the data back from 2005 on is that Kitsap County has several related housing challenges, especially for people with very low incomes or people that have disabilities and seniors. When they looked at how many houses we were building for what we actually had. Kitsap was only building 42 new units for every 100 new households that were formed. This means that jurisdictions, as we look forward to trends and upcoming trends and how much we're going to grow here in Kitsap, we'll need to almost triple what our average annual housing production is to accommodate the expected 25,150 new units throughout 2036. Next slide, please, Dana. And commissioners, you've all been briefed on this a few times actually, but we just wanted to go into a little bit some of the housing realities in Kitsap County. There is, as everyone knows, a significant affordable housing crisis. It's almost 40% of households in Kitsap County are paying more than the accepted 30% of monthly income on their housing. And what that 30% is, that's for your mortgage, your utility bills, or your rent. We want to have people stay at less than 30% or less of what their average monthly income is. We also know here that the rental housing market, we've seen the availability of rental housing drop considerably. We're down between the 3% and 4% level when we look at that in Kitsap County now. State and federal funds typically require a local match to get more funding to build new affordable housing. This would allow us to do that because there's a real shortage of that at this point. I mentioned earlier that rents and housing costs have dramatically skyrocketed in recent years, as everyone knows. When you look at my kids who just rented a new place in Paulsbo, it's really incredible what you have to spend to be able to afford just basic rental housing. And of course, as we all know, the COVID pandemic, it's only increased the housing instability. Next slide, please, Dana. Just for a little bit of data, and I want to thank my coworkers in the Housing and Homeless Division, Kirsten Jewell and Corey Durenberger, for putting together this data. They work really hard at coming up with accurate data that's specific to Kitsap County. When we did the 2020 point in time count, which is on usually the third Thursday of January nationwide, not just in Kitsap County, we go out with volunteer teams and count the individuals that are living out unhoused within the county. And we also have a few events within Salvation Army and a few other places that we can talk to people that are housing challenged. What we know is that in 2020, 1,747 households requested housing assistance through the Housing Solutions Center at Kitsap Community Resources, meaning I'm really close on losing my housing. What can I do? What resources are out there to help me? Because the best thing we can do at all times is to prevent people from becoming homeless in the first place. What also we know is school districts keep track of children that are homeless. There were 414 children that were counted homeless by school districts in the 2020 to 2021 year. I'd also like to say that we know that all these numbers underrepresent because these are just the people that we could actually talk to and the people that we could actually count and get names and identifying information for. So these numbers are likely much higher in Kitsap County. Also in 2020, there were 533 people that we counted that did not have a place to live. These were people that were homeless during the point in time count. Next slide, please, Dana. So the next reasonable question we get is why so many homeless? What's changed over the last decade? What exactly is going on? Can you go to the next slide, Dana? First of all, as we've touched on, the cost of housing has significantly increased. Wages for many people, and especially in the low income range, have been stagnant for the past several years, especially in Kitsap, but also in Washington State and nationwide. There's just not enough affordable housing available for people. And what we know is once people are displaced, it's very difficult to get them rehoused. When I mentioned number 3 before, one of the first slides that we did mention through the affordable housing study, just as a reminder, we're only building 42 units for every new households that are created in Kitsap County. So we're at a deficit already, and that looks to grow worse if we don't take some pretty drastic steps pretty soon. Next slide, please. This is just a brief slide on Kitsap specific rental and vacancy rates. If you can see the gray line there that's going up and down, as you can see, it's a basic supply and demand scenario. When the supply of rental houses goes down, or the rental prices go up. So as you can see, when we get to under 6%, this is 2020 data, because there is a data lag. This is from the University of Washington State Apartment Market Report. We can see that the cost goes up as the supply goes down. This is what we're into right now. This is the phase that we're into. This is the what we've ran into for the past several years. And the trends don't look good if we don't do something to try to address this. If you think about it, average rent has increased 40% in the last 5 years alone. Next slide, please. This is a slide for all of Washington State, just looking at the deficit in new housing units versus what we need to maintain even a 2005 ratio. Again, if you look at the line there, the golden line on my screen, hopefully it's golden on your screen, that's the rental vacancy rate. As that drops and continues to drop to, on this slide for Washington State, it's between 3 and 4%. You can see the blue is actual additional units that were created since 2005. But the red is the deficit of units. So we can see the deficit of units continues to increase. This is not where we need to be. We need to be staying consistent with where we need to be with creating new units as new families and new households come to Kitsap County. Next slide, please, Dana. So specific to this, the legislature sets very strict guidelines on any sort of legislation that involves funding, especially for this. It's how may the tax be utilized? I think the legislature and their staff did a very strong job at reaching out to counties and cities for this, say, what do we need and how do we get there? They also reached out to advocacy groups too, to listen about what people had to say. What would help you? How can we do this? So we can do a 1/10 of 1% sales tax, as we mentioned earlier. And for the group that we would serve, 60% of the revenues collected must be used for constructing affordable housing units and facilities providing housing related services. We can also use it for mental and behavioral health sort of services. An example of this would be some of the work that Kitsap Mental Health has done with Bremerton Housing Authority for the new Pendleton place that will be coming online early next spring. That's the sort of units that we need more of, along with senior housing units and other facilities. Next slide, please, Dana. Who will the funding serve? It's for people with income below 60% of area median income specific to Kitsap County. That includes individuals with behavioral health disabilities, veterans, our senior citizens, people that are currently homeless, unaccompanied homeless youth. A lot of times these are youth that are exiting foster care that have no place to go. People with disabilities and domestic violence victims. Next slide, please. What are other county cities doing? So far, passed by a public vote, you can see the cities and Ellensburg, Olympia, Port Angeles that have passed it. Passed councilmatically, City of Paulsbo, King County, Jefferson County, Bellingham, Tacoma. The rest of the list goes on. Under consideration right now is Mason County, Thurston County, Pierce, San Juan, Snohomish, Clallam, and Walla Walla. Next slide, please, Dana. What sort of annual revenue would this generate? Well, for Kitsap, we estimate about $5.4 million. And again, as we talked about earlier, we can leverage probably 5 to 1. That's what we've seen other municipalities and counties that have done that already. So we're looking between $20 and $25 million if we do a good job at leveraging. Next slide, please. And finally, this is the timeline that we've been working on. As you can see, we've done a lot of work moving forward. Today is December 13th. This is a public hearing on the ordinance. January 10th is when the board has scheduled for deliberations after they take the input from the public, which we've got a lot of input already, which we appreciate. And then on January 14th, the ordinance must be delivered to the Department of Revenue if the county commissioners decide to move forward with this. And then finally, on April 1st, 2022, the tax would be enacted. That's the presentation that we had, commissioners, and I'm willing to answer any questions you might have.
I can give just a brief summary of the comment received to date. We have received a lot of very helpful written comment. It does range from the folks who are strongly in support of the affordable housing tax to folks who are concerned about an increased tax effect on economic recovery, people with fixed incomes. And then also we have some people are kind of asking about the logistics of this. If we do enact this tax, are there projects already set to be funded? Or if we did enact it, how would we be distributing those funds into the future? So all good questions, and we really look forward to additional testimony this evening. And Doug, I apologize that I was both early and late at the same time.
So, commissioners, just we did take this matter out of order. So I would want to just entertain if there's any questions you might have for Doug or Eric right now on this matter. Then we can move back to hearing B prior to opening the verbal testimony for item D.
Yeah. I guess the one point I wanted to make, and it is a question, and Doug, you've given us the answer in great detail. But looking through all the comments that have come in so far, including the ones this afternoon from the public, there seemed to be a common theme, correct me if I'm wrong, a common theme from those commenting. And the questions were, how are the funds going to be applied? Where are they going? Who's getting them? And you generally talked about that in terms of the, as you laid it out in your presentation. But that was the theme that I'm here tonight, obviously, because it's a Board of County Commissioners meeting, but I'm here really to learn more and see what the issues are. And that's a common theme. Where is the money going? And do we have a plan where that money's going? Number one. And number two, are we looking at a larger scale, or could we be looking at a larger scale projects, or are we piecemealing with smaller projects?
Well, I think that is definitely going to be up to the board of county commissioners to decide exactly how they want to distribute it. Some of the conversations that have led to the discussion of this is having this is a substantial amount of money to hopefully be kind of a watershed event for our affordable housing needs. That may lead to some larger projects than normal, but I think it would be up to ultimately the board of county commissioners on how they want to distribute this money, whether they want to use a technical review committee to kind of go through proposals. Those are all details that can be fleshed out or further discussed. But it really will come down to what is the greatest need, what's the biggest bang for their buck. Both Kirsten and Doug know all the various ways that we can use this funding to leverage more money. As you heard from the presentation, that this money could be a 5-fold increase in projects if used properly. So I think these are details that we want to iron out sometime in the future. Doug, is there anything you'd like to add or correct?
No, I think that's exactly right, Eric. I would just like to add that we do have a roadmap and a guide, Commissioner. What we have is the affordable housing study that made recommendations and how to prioritize. And we also have the housing homeless survey that has priorities too. So typically what we'll do is we don't want to get too far ahead of the citizens and the community on this. We'll say, here's what the main priorities are. Here's what the data show that we need. What recommendations do you make to commissioners? Then we set up a citizens advisory board of citizens, subject matter experts, builders, designers, housing advocates, people with disabilities, all the different groups that we're trying to impact here, and have them do this. We'll review the information and data we have with them, and then they make recommendations to county commissioners.
Is the affordable housing study that you referenced with Bremerton, is that the one with Bremerton?
Yes, that's the one we funded with the city of Bremerton that is online on our site.
So the question would be exactly, we all know how specific we want to get on how we're going to be distributing these funds, but potentially the board may want to consider some greater details in the ordinance on how the basic structure on how they want to proceed making recommendations.
Commissioner Garrido, any questions?
I actually really appreciate the data and the information about the need. We know that the need is great. We know that we have a rapid growing population and that we're not keeping up with the housing supply. So I don't really have any questions. I just would like to see us continue to work with the information and to get more housing on the ground. Affordable housing on the ground.
Okay, we'll have the opportunity to take more questions, and apologize for folks that are on Zoom. We had a little shuffling of items, so thank you for the presentation. We now will shift back to public hearing B, and at that point in time, we'll do the presentation and testimony for public hearing B, and then we'll come back and pick up with the testimony for item D on the 110th. Okay.
Public hearing B, public hearing to adopt a resolution to approve an amendment to the Woodbridge Development Agreement with Kitsap LLC and Donna Markwick.
Thank you very much. For the record, my name is Eric Baker. This is a amendment to a development agreement focused on transportation improvements. These are very modest changes to what was a carefully crafted development agreement. Basically, this applies to the project Woodbridge Crossing, which is roughly 551 single-family and multifamily units with some mixed commercial as well. This project was approved in 2009 and then later amended in 2014. There was a mitigated determination of non-significance that through the analysis of the time indicated a certain number of transportation projects that would need to move forward. Then this development agreement was developed kind of based upon that. As we started moving through development in 2021, there was a warrant analysis done on some of these roadways and intersections, and we found that some of the improvements that were stipulated prior in the development agreement were either A, already completed, or B, no longer necessary. Thus, we are now proposing amendments to this development agreement in concert with the property owner. Again, based upon this new analysis, the basic things that are changing in the document that you see is that, I guess what you're seeing here is the proposed intersection that was provided by N.L. Olson and Associates. This is a kind of a conceptual drawing. As we get closer to design, etc., there's a lot more work that goes into this, but this is for illustrative purposes to show exactly what the intersection would look like. Largely what it's doing is it would be relocating what is a current access point to the parking lot over here, and locating it down the middle to again create a clearer and safer traffic flow. Also, a lot of these improvements were to be borne by the public in the original development agreement. I do believe that there is a greater commitment from the developer for the construction of components of this intersection that is located within this project. Also, very excitingly, is a clear. Let me see if I can share my screen and do this properly. Did everybody see the image change?
Yes.
Okay, so now we've zoomed out a ways. The intersection is still located right here, but this would provide a sidewalk / pedestrian connection from this intersection and the Gateway Park to the Clear Creek Trail, located down here south, closer to Silverdale. Also, it provides a non-motorized connection to Silverdale in a way that is much more robust than we see today. The development agreement was largely focused on a sidewalk running on this side. For everyone who's trying to orient themselves and wonder why this is so weird, this is actually north this way. This is south this way. Silverdale's down here. Falls goes up here. The original sidewalk was located on the east. This is a wetland system, some of which we have worked to improve over time. So kind of digging up a big chunk of it to put a paved sidewalk on did not make sense. Plus, it was important that we have proper connection between our various park and open space elements. This development agreement amendment will help address that the old development agreement did not, as well as providing greater clarity and greater safety for the intersection, as well as stipulating a different financial distribution of costs when it becomes necessary. That's all I have at this time on this topic.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions?
Question for Mr. Baker. You're our resident expert to date on this as we speak today. When you say modest changes, Eric, are you talking about the proposed intersection and the new sidewalk?
I was talking about actually the breadth of the development agreement. The development agreement is quite large. The number of changes that we're making to it are largely just focused on transportation. But again, so when I say modest changes, it is in the text element of it. Okay. But the impacts to the community will be huge. This is a great asset and a great improvement over what we thought was the best answer back in 2009 and then also in 2014. All of our knowledge evolves, and this amendment is a great way to acknowledge that evolution.
Would it be accurate to say that the changes to the development agreement will provide, make more safety available for the public?
Yes, I think if you took a look at, and we show you the old configuration, this is the old configuration right now. Woodbridge would come in here. Here is the two current entry points in and out of the park. I'm pretty certain there's not a lot of transportation engineers who think that this is a great idea, especially as continued growth drives more traffic down Silverdale Way and Woodbridge develops out. The proposed change located here is a much clearer, much safer also a street lighted avenue. Safety is substantially improved, not just when this goes in, but for the future residents of Central and Kitsap County as a whole.
Thank you. Thank you. I would say that those are probably both my observations. I think with the realignment of that's just problematic driving in and out of that parking area and its alignment with the roadway across to be able to get that coordinated with a controlled intersection will be pretty tremendous. Commissioner Garrido, any questions on this matter? Oh, you're muted.
Thank you for asking. No, thank you.
Okay, thank
We
you.
do have,
go ahead.
I believe some of the developer representatives may be testifying, so please feel free to ask them any technical questions as they come up, as they come forward.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I do see them in the chambers, so we will be afforded that opportunity if need be. So this item does require a public hearing, so I will open the verbal testimony. At this time, we do not have anyone in chambers that signed up to provide testimony, but if there is a member in the audience that would like to do so, please come to the podium and introduce yourself for the record. If there is a member of the public on Zoom as well, please use the raised hand feature or *9 if you're on your phone, if you'd like to provide testimony regarding an amendment to the Woodbridge Development Agreement with Kitsap LLC and Donna Markwick. Again, looking for a verbal testimony this evening on the potential amendment to the Woodbridge Development Agreements. If you are online in Zoom and would like to provide testimony, please use the raised hand feature or *9. And again, still, if anyone in chambers would like to provide testimony, they're more than welcome to come forward. Seeing none, I will close the verbal testimony for the item before us. Commissioners, do you have any other questions or other questions, maybe of a technical nature, that we would like to avail ourselves of the individuals that are in the room this evening?
No, thank you.
I have done.
So I know that it's kind of a conceptual level of design at this point in time. Functionally, the question that pops up for me in terms of a controlled intersection, and I think it's the best way to move people across and to have better, safer circulation of vehicles. It's more of a timing issue with the signal over by Wagga Way in its relative short distance. Are we at a point of design where we really can understand sort of how those might kind of work in terms of moving traffic through? I'm looking at Norm, but you don't have to answer that.
I was afraid you're asking me.
No, I'm not asking you, Eric. I'm asking Mr. Olson.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Commissioners. Yeah, my name is Norm Olson. I'm with NL Olson and Associates, and I'm project engineer representing the applicant. And yeah, you're correct. The design is just very, very conceptual and preliminary, and we'll be working with Public Works on just how they want it interconnected with the the intersection that you're talking about. So at this point, I'm not exactly sure how to answer that question.
No, I appreciate it. I figured it was a little bit a cart and horse type of situation, but it was just one of the things that struck me when looking at it.
Yes, it will be a definitely an improvement, no doubt, like you're saying. Appreciate
that. Anything else you'd like to offer while you're up here?
I just do have to say, while we're talking about it, that the realigning the two accesses, it will be much safer, but it looks like we're going to lose a couple, 3 or 4 parking spaces in that parking lot. So
good to know. It's a very well-loved, well-used parking.
Yes, I understand.
Yes. Okay. We'll definitely stay on top of that as we get towards the final design.
Right. Okay.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Norm.
Any other questions for Mr. Olson? No?
Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no other questions, The matter before us is the potential adoption of the resolution approving the amendment to the Woodbridge Development Agreement. Is there a motion to do that?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time this evening.
And I appreciate everyone's flexibility as we move back to item D. At this point in time, it is already read into the record, so I can move on to the testimony portion, but I just want to check back in with board members. Do you have any other questions for Mr. Baker or Mr. Washburn? I did hear in one of the emails that I received was a question that someone had. Is there some way that the tax can be applied towards only, say, luxury items over a certain dollar amount? And it was an interesting question, but I don't know if the systems are in place with the Department of Revenue, et cetera, to do that, or if the legislation actually allows that.
I believe the answer is actually neither. The Department of Revenue doesn't have that kind of system set up, and I don't believe the legislation allows. The legislation pretty much directs it to a particular component of RCW, the general sales tax component. So basically, if you're paying whatever you pay sales tax for on now, you pay 0.1% on top of that. I think it would take a legislative change and probably a more robust ability for the Department of Revenue to calculate certain types of expenditures.
Okay, appreciate that.
Doug, anything you'd like to add?
Okay. Well, very good. I appreciate that. If we have other questions, we can definitely chime in as we move into the testimony and or as we go into our deliberative process. So I will open the verbal testimony for the hearing this evening. We do have individuals, again, online. If you are interested in providing testimony, please use the raised hand feature or *9 if you're on your phone. What I will do is I'll probably be alternating between those in chambers that signed up to provide testimony and with those on online. And Helen Havens, oh, there you go. Great. I wanted to make sure you raise your hand again. So very good. Our first person to provide testimony this evening would be Dick Falconberry. And for anyone providing testimony this evening, you will have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Dick Falconberry. I recently moved here 3 years ago to build a prototype affordable house. Problem with affordable housing is not housing, it's land. And you own a lot of land. At the end of every dead-end street in this county is a site that you could put a small or even several affordable housing. The problem is that we are not building housing that we need for the size of the households. The average household in this country is 1.8 people. We don't need 2,300 square feet of housing. We need approximately 300 to 400 square feet. Full-size bath, full kitchen, place to sleep. The trick is to build your walls 10 feet high, because if you build your walls 10 feet high, you have effectively doubled the amount of storage spaces you have. Above each window and door, you have an additional storage. Obviously, an 8-foot high bookcase. If it's 10 feet high, it's now 25% more storage. The problem with the small houses is they don't have any storage. The second thing you do is you look at the Liberty ships of World War II. Same plan over and over and over again. Cosmetically different, paint, color, siding, that kind of thing. Otherwise, you build the same house every time, every place. You also go with double walls. Then you put your electricity mounted on the inside of the wall. And the reason why you do that is because then you achieve insulation. You put your solar panels on top and you'll achieve net zero. That means that they will actually get money from the utilities for living in the space. I can go on and on, but what you do is by building the same thing over and over again, you can build it in components. Now, you're not going to build it off site and move it in. That's not going to work for various reasons. But if you build the walls and then bring them in, tie them together, and because the electricity is on the outside, you don't have to worry about threading the wires through the walls. You also have a cathedral ceiling to give the thing feeling of spaciousness. And when I get my affordable house, I'll invite you all out. I'm in Gorst, lovely downtown Gorst. But I plan to have it done before your April 1st enactment of the sales tax.
Mr. Falconberry, I appreciate. So I appreciate the thoughts that you shared. Would you say that you are in favor of or against the sales and use tax?
$17, that's one bottle of gin a year, I think.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So next we will go to Helen Havens. And Helen, you should be able to unmute yourself.
All right, thank
You'll
you.
have 3 minutes.
I certainly can't top that testimony, but I'm Helen Havens. I've been a resident of Kitsap County for almost 50 years, on and off. And I thank you again for this opportunity and apologize for my overeagerness.
No worries.
I've lived and worked in Kitsap County for most of my adult life, and I worked with addiction and mental health for quite a while in public schools, with literacy, and in community medical services, among other things. And in all these areas of need and service, the lack of affordable housing has grown and profoundly affected the well-being of those with whom I worked. Homelessness has become apparent to everyone in the community. Now, in the time of COVID, the lack of available affordable housing is even more obvious and more dangerous for public health as well as individual health. This tax action is one way we can encourage real and creative movement in that direction. I'm very much in favor of it. I don't speak for anyone but myself, but I currently serve on the Citizens Advisory Committee for Mental Health, Chemical Dependency, and Treatment Courts. It's a wonderful opportunity to serve the community. And this model has worked really well for almost a decade in this county, the advisory board and the way of providing grants to local providers. That committee receives many, many requests for associated related housing needs of the people that are provided services. And this would address that growing need. You have a wonderful staff to provide information for you, and I hope that you'll set up a review committee of that kind, as Doug Washburn suggested. I heartily support and applaud this move. I believe that housing people first is the best way to heal the many inequities in our community and in our society. And this investment would save much more than it would call for in the long run. Although I wouldn't probably be buying a bottle of gin. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. I appreciate it. Next, we have Michael Gustafson.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Michael Gustafson. You know me well, I know, from many years of interacting. It's a pleasure to meet you in person, finally back in the chambers. This is a real first in a long time. The 0.1% sales tax, I will speak against, not because of the tax, but rather because we're not solving the problem that underlies the tax. In fact, by leveraging the tax, it becomes not 0.1%, it becomes more like 0.5%. That money, the extra money that's leveraged, has to come from somewhere. It's not free. We all pay that. So you're really adding a lot of tax. On top of it, we are seeing the most unfair tax of all, something called inflation, with gas prices up 63% from a year ago, impacting everything we buy. This tax is intended to hit people at 60% of median income. That's a $24 an hour person. One thing government tends not to be good at is counting numbers. How many people in this county make $24 an hour or less? That's the number of people this has to support, and it's a lot more than this tax will cover. I've been a low-income landlord for many, many years, renting to special needs people for roughly half a century. I know the market well. Currently in Silverdale, a one-bedroom apartment rents for $2,000 a month. A family of four making a median income in this county of nearly $80,000 a year can afford to rent a one-bedroom apartment in Silverdale using HUD's guidelines. The problem we've drawn ourselves into is we've made building very challenging. When I came to Kitsap County, we had an electrical code 50 years ago. That was about it. By 2002, we had a 1-inch thick set of county codes. That's all the titles you talk about. Now it's around 20 inches thick and growing fast. We just added 500 more pages. What we find is the small builders will not deal with that. They've walked away. I personally know 2 of them. They've just said, I'm not doing Kitsap County anymore. We have to attack the dragon that's causing the problem. And that's in DCD, which is not the Department of Community Development, but rather the Department of Community Regulation. And as far as planners go, where is the plan to accommodate the growth? We don't have any increase in the urban growth area. We continually fight that. Growth will not happen in Kitsap. Well, it's happening in South Kitsap, where I live, on a grand scale. And so long as we are building we talk about 40% of the rate of growth. We're really, the same study he talked about, this one, we've been building at 1/3 the rate of growth. And this only covers from 2010 to 2017. If you take it back to the beginning of growth management, we are today 20,000 houses short in Kitsap County. Well, it's simple supply and demand. I'm a landlord. My rents go up, and the sad stories come when I have to put a young lady with 2 little children just before Christmas who's promised me the rent will come from this agency, that agency, some other agency, and finally I make the phone calls, and that money is not going to be available because she's already spent it. 2 days before Christmas, she's walking down the street with her Christmas tree, 2 children in the rain. That's sad, but that does happen, and it's going to happen more frequently.
Thank you.
So
Appreciate it.
Please cut back on your regulations.
Thank you.
Any questions?
No, thank you. Helen, could you do me a favor? Would you lower your hand on Zoom? Just trying to keep track of folks. Thank you. Next, we have Rob Patonsu, Mayor of Port Orchard. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Perfect. All right. Thank you. I have Zoom figured out by now, but thank you, commissioners, for allowing me to testify. As you said, I'm Port Orchard Mayor Rob Patonsu. I think we're all aware of the growing housing and homelessness issues we're having here in Kitsap County and throughout our region. And I know it's difficult to get assistance from our state legislature unless you use all the tools that they've provided us. This local sales tax is an option that's been provided to us by the state legislature. This alone won't solve the affordable housing problem, but I believe it'll make a meaningful difference. I thank the commissioners for holding this public hearing and urge you to move this measure forward.
Thank you, Mayor Patonsu. Appreciate it. Next, we have Rob Doherty.
Hello, commissioners. Rob Doherty, Port Orchard. I'm not a fan of more taxes or increasing taxes myself. Never have been. I guess I have about just 2 questions to ask you mainly. Health and Human Services get money from our property taxes, don't they? I believe the feds are probably going to be helping you on this. So why is an increase in the sales tax necessary? I'm sure we have a lot of funding for Health and Human Services without doing this. That's the first question. Second question is at what income level is someone qualified to get assistance for affordable housing? Is it 25,000 annually, per year, or 30,000? What is the level of income where they're qualified?
Thank you for those questions. I appreciate it. Any other comments?
No, that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Next, we have Randy. I don't have a last name, but if you could introduce yourself for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Yes, Chairman. My name is Randy Sweeton. I live up here in halfway between Silverdale and Bremerton. And to start out with, I will tell you that I agree with the proposal that we should have affordable housing, the $5 million that we want to spend. I am violently against bringing in another tax. There's some truisms about taxes and politicians that go hand in hand with this. I have never seen a tax that a politician didn't like. I've never seen a tax that a politician ever reduced. And I've never seen a tax that a politician eliminated. And what you're wanting to do is create another tax. And my problem with that is the budget for the first quarter was increased by $5 million. The budget for the second quarter was increased by $10 million. The budget for the third quarter was increased by $10 million. And you just now increased the general fund budget by another $1 million. You got $25 million of additional revenue. You have the funds within Kitsap County. Why are you deciding today that it is so important for us to go tax our citizens another $17? Why? You have the funds. It's absurd to go out and say, oh, we've got 25 million new dollars. Let's go spend it on something else. Let's have 9.1% in taxes in Kitsap County. And if you live in Bremerton, it's 9.2. And if it's crazy, guys. I just reassess what you're doing. You have the funds to do everything that was presented is a phenomenal plan for affordable housing, but you have the funds. In 2022 and 2023, you find out, oh my goodness, we don't have that extra $25 million a year. Maybe then we relook at it. But guys, just throwing another tax out there, gosh, stop it. I appreciate your time, commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you. The next we have Katie Sharp with the BHA. And again, if anyone else in chambers would like to provide testimony, please just come forward and introduce yourself for the record.
Hi, I unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I want to thank you for this opportunity to comment on the proposed tax increase. My name is Katie Sharp, and I am the communications manager at the Bremerton Housing Authority. On behalf of both Housing Kitsap and Bremerton Housing Authority and our executive directors, Jill Stanton and Heather Blau, I want to share some additional information on the shortage of affordable housing in Kitsap County. To be able to provide subsidy for low-income individuals and families through our largest program, Housing Choice Vouchers, we rely heavily on local landlords. Not only do they have to have available units, which are already in short supply, but they have to price them under market rate and meet our specific program requirements. Therefore, our voucher holders face increased barriers to accessing what is available in the private market. Over the last 10 years, we have never been able to fully utilize our vouchers due to severe HUD funding shortages and due to the lack of affordable units in Bremerton and the greater Kitsap County. Bremerton Housing Authority is allocated 1,896 vouchers, and we also administer an additional 403 vouchers for Housing Kitsap. Now that funding is becoming a priority at the national level, we are issuing more vouchers to be used in the private rental market here in Kitsap County. Our subsidies ensure qualified low-income households only have to pay 30% of their income towards rent, and we pay the rest. Since there's a severe shortage of affordable housing in Kitsap County, An overwhelming majority of our voucher holders do not find housing. For those who are successful, the hunt can take several months. Approximately 600 vouchers are going unused each year. This equates to $5 million in annual federal funding that we are unable to provide the Kitsap County because of the shortage. Increasing the amount of affordable rental units in Kitsap County will help our voucher holders be more successful in finding safe, decent, and affordable housing. And therefore, we are in support of this proposal.
Thank you, Katie. Is there anyone else in chambers that would like to provide testimony? Please come forward and introduce yourself for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name's James Towner. I've been a long time with Kitsap. I'm a builder. I'm a owner of property. I am a person trying to build their own home. I am currently still in the nightmare of DCD and the regulations and the bureaucracy of let's add some more regulations to make this nightmare. I am against adding the 0.1% for low income housing and affordable housing. That word affordable does not exist. The various zoning regulations, your ALQ, ADU, unable to provide our ability to build a home to take care of an 81-year-old mother-in-law in the code has been extremely difficult. And I've realized that you guys are adapting to some new codes in this upcoming next point, but you're late. You missed the boat. You're 20 years past. This should have been done years ago. And working with owners, owner builders, contractors, DCD has gotten better, but also failed on many occasions. So when you look at affordable housing, environmental review. Oh, it's easier for us to have you go get a wetland specialist to prove that you don't have wetlands on your property. Paid professionals from septic designers to the health department to our being the owners of the property and working with the conservation district was still not satisfactory for an environmental person. So it's cheaper for them, but it's not cheaper for us. So $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 for a piece of paper to prove a negative is unrealistic. And adding the building materials, the cost of construction, the labor is all skyrocketing. I can't buy half the materials that I need to build my house without working diligently to be able to accommodate everything that I need to do. And time. I'm in a rental house. Instead of building my house currently because of DCD's regulations and they're dragging their feet and their third-party stormwater reviewers, which is beyond a joke and costing us money. My permits today that I've paid equate to $20,000 for a house and an accessory building. How is that affordable? My tax dollars are not being utilized properly. No, to the 1%.
Thank you. Next, we have Stanley Mack. You should be able to unmute yourself. You'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Stanley Mack, and my wife Jane is also with me. And we would like to speak in favor of the 0.1% of sales tax for affordable housing. We are involved with a community group called Kingston Cares, and Kingston Cares has sponsored a affordable housing working group, and we've been looking at the problems of affordable housing for about 3 years now. And from our perspective, there is no way for the free market to provide adequate housing for the lower 60% of AMI. There's the houses that are being built are houses and apartment buildings that are being built are too expensive for the low end of the market. And there's no incentive for the builders and developers to do otherwise. Jane, would you like to say anything?
The main thing I would like to say is just that we know several people that work in Kingston that can no longer live in Kingston because they can't afford the housing, either purchased or rented.
So our view is that it's important for a government and nonprofits to partner together to work on building up an inventory of housing that's adequate to meet the needs of our community. And the 0.1% of sales tax is a start to be able to address that shortage and that lack of inventory. So we're strongly in support. Thank you.
Thank you, Stan and Jane. Appreciate that. Next, we have Marwin Cameron. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Good
You'll have
evening,
3 minutes.
commissioners. How are you?
I'm well, and yourself?
I'm doing fine. My name is Marwan Cameron. I'm the executive director of Gather Together, Grow Together, and the Conduit, and the president of Resilient Ecosystems. You know, my concerns about this tax is really centered around what we're doing to resolve the homelessness issue in this county. Another person mentioned, you know, affordable housing isn't affordable. And we know that this is true, but are we feeding the beast, or are we really addressing the issue at hand? As Doug presented, he showed 1747, 414, 533 for those that either need help, kids, or folks that are truly living homeless, for a total of 2,694. What often happens is we have outside builders come in and build and set affordable housing at 20% of what they build. Based on that, if 100 unit buildings were created, you would need 135 units. A few other people tonight mentioned that we're already hustling backwards, and we're not going to be able to make this up. The other thing that I wanted to mention is there's already a 0.1% tax in this county for mental health. And in full disclosure, my organization was one that applied for some of those monies. The question is, what are the outcomes and how are we measuring this? So some of the monies are going to be used to expand mental health services, but are we just allowing people to learn how to deal with the situation that they're in? But are we really truly solving the problem? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Cameron. And next we have FHPM. If you could introduce yourself for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. My name is Drayton Jackson, founder of the Foundation for Homeless and Poverty Management, and lived experience with homelessness and affordable housing. Like Mawan said, I want to thank Director Washburn for a wonderful presentation that shows the complete data of what our county, state, and families are going through. I want the commission, when you think about affordable housing, that you're thinking about people, families, children, many that have come from off the streets. Our neighbors in King County has stopped thinking about people. And if you go down the I-5 corridor and you get off the ferry, you start to see the evidence of their denial of affordable housing. Homelessness is growing in Kitsap County, and it's evident. My Foundation for Homeless and Poverty Management has helped 5 people receive emergency vouchers for housing. Out of those 5, we have found housing for 2. As we are rolling out The truth is that there is nobody that wants to take any of the vouchers because they don't understand affordable housing or deal with affordable housing because of stigmas. We cannot sit back and wait for people to struggle first before we give them affordable housing. With my lived experience, KCR and their temporary housing saved my family's life. But today, I have a homeless single mother with a voucher with 2 children that has an emergency voucher for a 3-bedroom. And because of laws, because of not being able to find her voucher, which is for a 2-bedroom, she is still homeless in a car with her child. I want the commission to understand how important it is for affordable housing in our county. And if this tax can change a child's life of trauma from homelessness, from poverty on the streets, then this tax needs to be passed. Constantly put into your mind that the numbers are people. When we deal with each housing unit, that is somebody that is off the street. I thank the commissioners for their time.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Appreciate it. Next, we have Mary Mcclure. And you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Do that. Okay. Did that work?
It did work.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm here to express my strong support for this sales tax. I'm confident that the professionals and community members who are working on these issues, and I'm one of them up in Kingston in the Kingston Low Affordable Housing Work Group with Stan and Jane and others, will be able to deal with and address things like eligibility, mental health outcomes, and all the many different interrelated things. But I just read in the Sun, that newspaper, that consumer prices have gone up 6.5% in the last year, which is the largest increase in a year in 29 years. Regardless of pieces of this that may be challenging to work out, we need to support affordable housing in every way that we can. I'm totally in favor of this action. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Next, we did have Sandra R, but lowered your hand. If there is anyone else on Zoom that would like to provide a verbal testimony at this time, please use the raised hand feature or *9 if you're on your phone. If there's anyone else in chambers that's not already testified, please come forward to the podium. Again, if there's anyone else participating by Zoom this evening that would like to provide testimony, please use the raised hand feature or *9 if you are on your phone. And one last call, if there's anyone online that would like to provide verbal testimony, if they could use their raised hand feature or *9 if they're on their phone. And then again, if anyone else, last call in chambers as well. Seeing none, I will close the verbal testimony for this hearing tonight. Commissioners, what I would like to propose is a little bit different from the timeline that was on the slide presentation, but that we close the verbal testimony at this time, but leave the written record open through the close of business on December 31st of this month, so the end of the month. That would bring us to scheduled deliberations on the matter at our meeting on January 3rd at 2 p.m. With a decision only at our night meeting on January 10th of 2022. Okay. Mr. Guido?
I
Agreeable?
totally support that. I believe that that will give us more time to review the input that we've had and to hear additional.
Okay, great. I appreciate it. Thank you. Madam Clerk, did you get all that? All right.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
This is an opportunity for the public to address the board on general interests.
So this is an opportunity for general comments this evening. If there is a member, no one in the chambers is signed up, but if there is someone that would like to provide general comments to the board this evening, please come forward to the podium and introduce yourself for the record. You'll have 2 minutes. Likewise, on Zoom, if you would like to provide general comments this evening, please use the raised hand feature or *9 if you're on your phone. And again, an opportunity to provide general comments this evening. Seeing none, we will move on. Commissioners, any final comments this evening that you'd like to share?
Commissioner Rita?
Thank you. Well, related to our most recent hearing, I was out in Veterans Park on Saturday with a fabulous group of volunteers, actually helped organize by Northwest Hospitality to do some work cleaning up some of the homeless encampments in Veterans Park and talking to the the inhabitants, the residents, about alternative housing that may be available to them. So there are lots of ways that we can work together to make sure that affordable housing is available to all.
Thank you.
Just 3 very brief items. Emergency Operations Center, Department of Emergency Management, volunteers recognition this week. Look forward to being out there with the stars, some of the larger stars in our community. I mean that very sincerely. We'll all be attending and participating in the League of Women Voters, I think Wednesday, growth in Kitsap County. Speaking of affordable housing, growth in Kitsap County. We'll be panelists. And lastly, Veterans Treatment Court graduation is Friday. I'll be there for that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. And just wanted to let folks know one of the other things this week will be the Housing Kitsap board meeting, which is via Zoom on Thursday. And just as a reminder, the county offices will be closed on Friday, the 24th for the Christmas holiday, as well as the 31st for New Year's. And with that, thank you all. It was really nice this evening to have some folks in chambers as well in the 3D format. But then again, is also appreciate everyone that signed on online in Zoom to provide testimony or to be part of the meeting this evening. So thank you all for your time and attention. We stand adjourned.
All right, everyone. That is the commissioners' meeting on the new 1/10 of 1% proposal tax. As you heard in my concerns, and I actually had a little bit more time left, I've got a list of 5. And as I was speaking in the podcast with Bremerton Housing Authority and KCR earlier, I was saying it's important to write down your thoughts and how fast 3 minutes go. So, and I'm also having the benefit, not always the benefit, but the benefit of going after some other people and listening to what they say, and then trying to edit myself so I'm not repetitive, right? And what's already been said. But one of the things that I really needed to include in there is the reason why I am on the fence about the tax, right? I'm for the tax. $17 is nothing, right? I watch people waste money all the time, and folks don't want homelessness in their backyard, and it destroys their property values, and they have all these thoughts on it. But then at the same time, many times they don't want to do anything like tax themselves to actually resolve the issue, right? It's just not in my backyard. I don't want to hurt my property values. I don't want to see it, but I also don't want to deal with it. So it's everyone's problem. We all have to deal with it. And more people are finding themselves in that situation that never thought that they would be in that situation. And again, whatever is going on with the with COVID, as we're dealing with Omicron, maybe it's more infectious. You don't get as sick. It's the new normal. I was listening to someone today. It might have been a physician talking about putting the flu shot and the COVID shot together, and everyone getting that, once a year, at some point in time. Yeah, eventually we're lucky. That's what we move to, right? But there's always something next. And right now, it is very much true. You hear the numbers every Monday, right? 600 people on the waiting list. The vouchers that can't be used because you can't find any affordable housing. The uncounted numbers that Doug Washburn from the county was saying, right? They do a point in time count, which was in 2020, right? And that's based on who they see in that day that they decide to do the count. So there's no way for them to capture everyone. And we know from the time that they've done that count, we've gone through a whole nother year. And so we see it, we know it, we know that these numbers are in the thousands, and likely the tens of thousands, as was mentioned before. So the question that I have is, again, are we just a cog in this machine and we just perpetuate the problem? And what I mean by that is what I was saying. You've got that 0.1% for Kitsap mental health, or for mental health, not Kitsap mental health, for mental health, right? But how are we measuring that? Are folks being stabilized through, alcohol or drugs or emotional disorders or whatever the case may be, and put back onto solid ground? My question is how could they, or how effectively could they, if housing isn't affordable? Where are they going to work? Where are they making a livable wage that can pay the affordable housing rents that currently exist in this county? And so now the proposal for another tax to say, hey, we're going to bring all these millions of dollars in, we're going to be able to do building and this and that. And what do we see? Oh, we got this developer in. We're going to give them tax breaks to come in and build. So we're giving them a break. And for that tax break, they're going to make 20% of that housing affordable. Okay? Well, you built 5 units, 1 is affordable. You built 100 units, 20 is affordable. You built 50 units, 10 is affordable. Okay? How does that resolve the problem? Section 8 waiting list opens up, hundreds of people instantly, and it closes again. So once you get these folks housed, what do you do on the other side? Can they maintain it? If there's a voucher program and BHA or some program is paying and all they have to do is pay 30%, okay, so be it. But even that's not good enough. And it's not good enough because eventually they're not going to qualify for that. Eventually, they might actually get a job. We work with so many different people that need help, and it's great that the social safety net catches them. But then as they get their job, as they get back on their feet, as they start earning more, that safety net starts to get cut away. And there's no equilibrium. Make $1 more, lose $200 in food stamps. Make $1 more, lose some of your housing payment. Lose $1 more, and you just keep losing. And so until you find that equilibrium, there's no point in you even going to work or getting a raise. So you have to stay in perpetual poverty in order to get help. And then we don't say anything to the rich that want it easy. I'm not saying that, rich folks don't work hard, but what I'm saying is this. Pull yourself up from your bootstraps. You need to go to work. There's dignity in work. There's not dignity in struggling, drowning, surviving. That's not resilience. So the system is broken. And what I see is we keep, this is what they mean by throwing money at a problem. You're throwing money at a problem that you're never going to solve. And as Matt was saying earlier in the podcast, everyone didn't start off with an alcohol problem or a drug problem or mental health issues. The housing became unstable. Why? Typically because they couldn't pay for it any longer. They couldn't sustain it. So, okay, you're going to house all these people. Now, how are you going to sustain it? How are they going to sustain it? See, the numbers are going in the wrong direction. So what are we really doing here? And it's not just Kitsap County. This is nationwide. We're the richest nation on earth. And I've got to say, you know, the gentleman with the proprietary tiny home that he's building, you know, he lost me pretty quickly. And while I agree that an individual doesn't need 2,000 square feet, I disagree that someone needs 400 square feet and build it 10 feet high so they can have some storage and put their storage above them or below them, however he has it set, right? You're going to make it look bigger. You know, it'd be interesting to know how large a prison cell is. Is it 6 by 10? Is it 10 by 10? He's talking about 400 square feet. And that's all someone needs. That's very concerning to me. What I'd like to see ultimately is solving the actual problem. And I think that a big part of the problem is that people can't afford to live. So yes, they need a place to live, but they need enough money so that they can maintain it, so they can thrive, so they can grow. So we need job creation. We need job training programs. We need to pull back from outsourcing. We have everything we need in this county. We have builders, contractors, we have everything. Architects, surveyors, whatever. So you use local business. You hire locally. You train locally. You create a program that incentivizes the local companies or subsidize the local companies to hire and train local workers who live in this community. Not those fleeing Seattle or Tacoma for cheaper rents. Not transient military. The people who live here. And rest assured, I will almost but guarantee that some of the voices that you may have heard tonight our folks. Well, the one guy said he's been living here for 3 years. He moved here 3 years ago. You probably have some Seattleites that are in these meetings that are making their voices heard on what they want to happen in this community that many of us have been living in for more than a decade. But we don't speak up. Now, we can make assumptions by how a person sounds. So let's be intellectually honest. But how many BIPOC people did you hear making a public comment tonight? Now, again, I'm making an assumption. But based on the voices, as far as Black men were concerned, I know myself and Drayton Jackson made a comment. I didn't hear any Black women making any comments. I didn't hear many women making comments. Low income, BIPOC community is disproportionately impacted by this situation. But we don't make our voices heard. We don't get involved. You must get off Facebook. You must get off Twitter. You must take action. And sadly, at the end of the day, we get what we get. You get what you give. We cannot expect these folks to save us. We have to save ourselves. Good thing is we only have 12 days left. I know a lot of people like their New Year's resolutions. So hopefully your New Year's resolution is to take power, take action, have it be different. Join a committee, join a group, make your voice heard. We can do it together. We cannot do it separate or alone. Lots of decisions being made for you. All right, y'all. Woo! It's been a long day. And I told you I had one more show to go. This will be 5 podcasts in one day. I think that'll be my record. So I told the Rev I was going to come on at about 7:30, but I forgot about this meeting. So I'm going to take a little break. It might be about 9 o'clock when I come back on. I might have to push it, just seeing how I feel. I gotta walk around or something. My legs are killing me sitting in this chair. I've been sitting here way too long. Anyway, I am Marwan Cameron. This is the Conduit. You know, tomorrow we've got Deborah's Corner. So come and join us then. Again, the 14th annual Hope 360 Christmas giveaway is Thursday, December 23rd, 2021, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. 'Tis the season. Don't let COVID be the reason. While you're waiting on St. Nick, make sure you don't get sick. On-site COVID-19 vaccination pop-up clinic. For registration questions, contact Surviving Change, kitsap@gmail.com, or call 360-471-0865. Location is Sinclair Baptist Church, 4900 Auto Center Boulevard, Bremerton, 98312. Again, I am Marwan Cameron. This is the Conduit. We will see